Today, I'm going to explain an Australian science fiction film called 2067. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie's storyline takes place in the year 2067, when climate change has left the world irreparably damaged. The whole plant kingdom has vanished. The amount of oxygen in the air has dramatically decreased due to the absence of plants. To survive, people must buy artificial oxygen. 99% of the planet is now under darkness. People suffocate to death. Only one Australian city has managed to live in such circumstance, and it's all because to a company called the Chronocorp Corporation that produces artificial oxygen. However, over time, artificial oxygen leads to a lethal disease known as the sickness. Only a few years left until humanity completely vanishes. Ethan White lives in the Australian city. He works as a mechanic at the Chronocorp company alongside his pal Jude. The corporation is also working round the clock to develop a treatment for the sickness and a means of saving the world. Xand, Ethan's wife, also suffers the sickness. Ethan works tirelessly day and night to get enough money to buy her better oxygen. One day, as Ethan and Jude work in the tunnel, the Chronocorp CTO of Particle Research, Regina Jackson, summons them to her office. She presents herself to the two and informs them that humanity would vanish in a few years if nothing is done to improve the situation. She then discloses that Ethan is the only one capable of helping everyone and saving the world. Ethan is perplexed and does not believe her. Regina, though, insisted him go to their lab. The lab has massive equipment. Billy Mitchell, the lab's doctor, introduces himself to Ethan and takes a brief glance at his wristwatch. They then reveal him that this research was launched by Ethan's father, Dr. Richard White, 20 years ago. The device in front of them is a time machine known as the Chronicle. In the first ever experiment done with the machine, they had to send radio waves into it to check what was on the other side. They discovered that 407 years later, in 2474, the world would have enough flora to maintain enough oxygen levels in the air and support human existence. They begin to think that if mankind is still there several hundred years later, it is probable that they have discovered solutions to every issue that is afflicting their world. However, a strange activity baffled the scientists there. The waves they sent have returned in a new form. They learned after decoding it that it had been transmitted to them from the future and requested that they send Ethan White. Therefore, Regina and the rest of the crew want to send Ethan into the future so he may return with the cure. Ethan is utterly shocked. He doesn't believe them and thinks Regina is bluffing. Also, he does not want to abandon his sick wife and travel into the future, so he refuses to assist. Later, Ethan and Jude purchase fresh oxygen at a restaurant. Jude makes an effort to convince Ethan to carry out the plan and help in saving humanity. Ethan, though, mocks him and declares that he doesn't want to be like his father. Ethan hates his father since he is never there for him. His father left home and went missing 20 years ago, and his mother was murdered when he was a child. Since then, he has been raised by Jude, whom Ethan considers as both his elder brother and best friend. He holds him responsible for leaving his mother behind to finish the project, and he doesn't want to follow in his footsteps by abandoning his sick wife. Jude is able to convince him, though, by arguing that finding a cure is the only way he can save his wife. Ethan remembers his 9th birthday, and how his father had given him a strange box. As he puts his hands inside the box, a gadget hooks onto his wrist, causing him to bleed. Richard had placed a permanent hand device on his son. Even though it has been a while, Ethan is still unsure of its purpose. Later at home, Ethan tells Xand all that occurred that day, and she, too, insists on him going. The next morning, Ethan writes, "I will find my way back to you" on a metal flower and places it alongside Xand. He then returns to Regina's office and informs her that if he can only find one cure, it must be given to Xand first. Regina agrees and returns with him to the lab. Dr. Mitchell shows him the outfit he must wear before entering the machine. As they start to explain the mission to him, Ethan finds that they do not have a strategy. They are completely unaware of what he will see or who he will encounter on the other side. However, after putting him in the suit, they give him an AI gadget known as the Archie. Archie will constantly display Ethan's vitals to the lab. It will also make it easier to find him. They ultimately put him into the machine at that point. Inside, Ethan travels through time at breakneck speed. He plummets from the sky and lands in a mysterious forest. The friction from the air causes his suit to catch fire, so he hurriedly exits it. Then he glances around and is taken aback by the beauty of nature. He discovers that the entire world has transformed. The trees and fresh air have been restored. He follows Archie's directions and comes upon what appears to be a bunker door. However, what draws his attention is a skeleton that is lying just in front of the entrance. There is a gunshot wound in its head. In addition, he is shocked to discover his own name on the name tag on it. It is Ethan's skeleton. Ethan also discovers the Archie of the skeleton and listens to its last recording. He hears a man say that this is the only way and shoots Ethan. Just then, the device's power goes out. He is frightened because he thinks this is his future. Then he sees the wrist gadget on the skeleton. It is similar to Ethan's, with the exception that Ethan's has always been red, whereas the skeleton's device's light glows green. That night, he builds a fire and eats wild berries. It turns out that the berries were poisonous. Ethan vomits and falls unconscious. After some while, Ethan finally awakens and is startled to discover Jude standing in front of him. It turns out that the lab thought Ethan was experiencing a toxic response when they noticed his vitals falling. So they promptly dispatched Jude into the future with the remedy to rescue him. Later, Ethan and Jude discover that his skeleton is still there, indicating that nothing has changed about his destiny. Then they utilize Archie to locate a side entrance. They get entrance by scanning Ethan's eye using a device. When they enter, a monitor greets them. It requests a DNA sample from him. He accepts it, and his wrist gadget starts to make him bleed. Following the blood test, it becomes green. When the room's lights come on, they discover they are 407 years later in Chronocorp's laboratory. Additionally, the time machine is in front of them. Jude is thrilled that they now have the capacity to go across time, but Ethan disagrees, claiming that nothing has changed and that he will ultimately die, just like the deceased Ethan. Ethan checks the system log and finds a holographic recording made by his father, who explains that the time machine was originally designed to collect the oxygen data in the future planet and then transmit it back to the past. When his father initially turned on the time machine, he received a message instructing him to send his son to the future. Despite his concerns, he decided to continue with the DNA verification for Ethan. Ethan and Jude soon come to the conclusion that the time machine cannot transport them back in time since its battery is practically dead after 407 years. Even worse, the lab's activation sets off a nuclear power core breakdown that might result in a nuclear catastrophe in only 4 hours. This means they must find a method to repair the time machine and return to before the disaster. Time is running out, so they must move swiftly. Outside, they are surprised to find a ruined city covered with green plants, but inhabited with no humans, showing that Earth starts to recover itself after human extinction. There are skeletons of people all throughout the place. When Ethan arrives at his wife's home, he discovers her skeleton, which sends him into a state of hopelessness. Jude attempts to convince him to return to the past because the treatment for the sickness doesn't appear to exist there either. However, Ethan is wary of Jude's suggestions. He then switches on the rusted Archie and plays the tape again, recognizing Jude's voice, and it appears Jude is the one who shot him. Jude points his gun in Ethan's direction while loudly denying that he would shoot him. Ethan eventually chooses to finish the mission first, so they work together to rebuild the power core and then return to the lab. Now that the Chronicle system is functional, they should be able to travel back in time. All they need to do is wait 37 minutes for the gateway to open. When the timer reaches 0, the portal will tether to 2067 for roughly 30 seconds. However, Ethan still finds his skeleton in the same spot, lying behind a door, showing that nothing has changed about the future. To find out the truth, Ethan removes the battery from his current Archie and replaces it with the rusted one. In this way, he gains access to another video in which Ethan is certain that Jude would kill his future self. Jude then admits that he is attempting to protect Ethan, but that there is no chance of changing the future. Finding it hard to believe, Ethan locks his brother up in a room, then plays back his father's holographic log from the day he died. He eventually comes upon a chat between his father and Regina Jackson, the Chronocorp CTO. It is revealed that Ethan's father meant to use the time machine to rescue all mankind by finding a cure, whilst the CTO merely intended to use the machine to leave from the dying period with a select few. However, whichever strategy they select, someone must travel into the future and activate the time machine to safely transport living matter across time. An operational link from both sides is required. To prevent the CTO from carrying out her plan, his father locks the time machine and uses Ethan's DNA as the verification key. In anger at what Ethan's father just did, the CTO killed him immediately. She then gives Jude the order to kill Ethan's mother and take care of him so they may use Ethan's wrist to go into the future in the future. Ethan is utterly shocked. The man he thought of as his brother turned out to be the one who killed his mother and is about to kill him too. And he understands that he misunderstood his father, who didn't leave the family on purpose. Ethan tries to turn off the time machine since he knows Regina intends to send a select few into the future. But Jude rushes to stop him and reveals the CTO has ordered him here to make sure Ethan is sent in time to fix the power outage. He should kill Ethan once the time machine is activated. Jude and Ethan, though, have become close emotionally over time. He feels guilty after seeing his brother like Buddy in that situation as a result of him. So, rather of shooting Ethan, he actually kills himself. Ethan is driven by fury and remorse to carry out his father's last wish, which was to find a cure and help the dying people. He checks at the monitor and discovers his father's very first message. He deduces that the message sent Ethan White was sent by himself. As a result, he codes in the message again and sends it into the past, along with many other things. Meanwhile, in the year 2067, the CTO and a group of privileged chosen people are eagerly awaiting the activation of the time machine. However, to their surprise, the time machine sends back hundreds of extinct plants, as well as a copy of Ethan's father's recorded murder. Soon after, Ethan breaks the time machine, which brings the CTO's plan to an end. In the end, the murder leads to the CTO's arrest. The plants transported to 2067 are being grown in order to revive the planet. Ethan's wife also receives a flower sent from him and understands his choice. While Ethan must remain alone in the future world, he buries Jude and forgives him. A butterfly captures his eye and takes him back to the same entrance, where Ethan is relieved to see that his future self's skeleton has vanished. He quickly looks outside and is pleased to discover an eco-friendly, futuristic town as opposed to the deserted one from previously. His choice had altered the course of human history. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.